This is Kit Kabinet with the full build of the Revell Seehund submarine in 1/72 scale. Today I want to build the Revell Seehund. The Revell Seehund is in fact the ICM kit, completely identical. Now, Revell has a nice box and everything, but they're kind of unpractical to work from, so I usually discard them. And what I do is that I take a box from a kit that I've already built, and I do this quite often. This box has already served as a home base for a Fokker D21, a Reggiane 2000, a P40N, a Heinkel 112, and now there's a Seehund inside. Fuck. There's a Seehund inside. Now the build is actually quite simple. It's basically just these two halves together with some extra parts on it. And the only thing that you'll have to look out for is get the flash of these fine details, like these Torp screws here. And small details, but it's really a simple build. The instructions of this box will have you build the late version with the side blisters and the square rudder construction. I've already removed those parts because I want to build an early version with the circular rudder. Just simply clip this off with the side clippers. So you just glue this together and you're done. Nah, joking aside. This kit does not have any positioning pins, so you'll have to align it carefully. You could make a couple of plastic card location pins yourself, but at this size it's not really necessary. Maybe if you have bigger U-boat. I have a very nice, the X23 I believe, the Type 23 I believe, which is very nice, but which also lacks the location pins, and there it would be handy to make some location blocks for yourself, but with this I'm just gonna glue this thing together. Oh yeah, another thing that the instructions want to have you do is to install the rudder first. So you'll have a movable rudder, and then after the rudder's been installed you'll have to install the screw on here while that rudder is on there. And I think that's a bit too fidgety for my taste, so I'm going to position those afterwards. I'm going to glue it in one position anyway. I don't need a moving rudder. Put some glue on there. And just add it together just like that, and there's no location pins, so you need to align these ridges very precisely. And now that the halves are together, I'm going to add some Tamiya extra thin flow between the contact surfaces. It's a bit difficult when you want to do this while holding these parts together with no location pins. So hence I use two types of glue on this assembly. And push everything together nice and tight. You could use some rubber band or some tape to keep the pressure on there, but actually it's holding together quite nicely. So I don't think it will be necessary on this build. Your torpedo assembly is basically the same. Very simple, but keep in mind, align these very precisely to prevent a seam forming in the middle of both the parts. Will be very visible, so take care when gluing those parts. Again with Tamiya extra thin. With much of the assembly it's basically just follow the instructions. It's a very simple kit, very low parts count. The conning tower is now basically done, or at least the main body of the conning tower. And I must say it's probably easier to reach the inner parts here with an airbrush or with a rattle can than with a brush. Especially these parts inside here. But on the other hand, they're quite deep hidden away. Now for the crew entry hatch, I will use a different part than mentioned in the instructions. I will use part 26 instead of part 29 because I want to build an early version. So I'll put that there and glue that in a position like so. And there's another thing. In this part, it's part 35. This is supposed to go on top here as the crew cupola, and this dome is supposed to be transparent. And the thing is, the kit instructions will have you paint this like a silver color to simulate a transparent dome. What you can also do is like actually install a transparent dome, and you can like vac form a little plastic dome for that. Maybe source a transparent old dome from another kit. This entry hatch with a transparent dome, that the dome is in fact way too small for a Seehund driver to stick his head in and see outside. It's just a very shallow dome. So I took the original part and I'm going to make a bigger dome on that. Just stuck a piece of sprue on that. And we'll shape it into a better dome. So I've taken the original part and built a bigger dome on there, and then put the whole hatch onto a piece of sprue. And what I'm going to do now is take a lump of poster bud and press this in there. Like so. Okay, we have a good negative now. And then I'm going to take this UV glue and fill that cavity there with the glue. And carefully get rid of any air bubbles and harden it with UV light. Let's go. Okay, now let's peel this putty away and see what we've got. And here we have a very simple, very basic hatch with a transparent cupola. Now, to be honest, this took me 3 tries, so it's not as easy as it looks in a video, just so you know. Now you can polish this with a nail file set, so you can shine it up a bit and then hit it with some future to get a really glossy finish. And it's not entirely flawless, but I think it's close enough. And there's your transparent hatch. One thing, I will drill this out a bit and then paint it the dark grey to simulate a bit of depth underneath the new dome. It's a bit, yeah, has a bit of a lens effect there. Okay, all the parts are glued on now. I've masked the transparent dome with some mascol. And now it's time for primering. But I ain't gonna do that inside. So I'm going to use a little video magic. Ta-da! I'm now going to spray light grey over the top half of the submarine in preparation for the model pattern. Okay, here I've got some poster butt putty. I'm going to roll that into a thin snake, like so. And then I'm going to take a knife, cut some sections from it, oops, etc., and turn these into small little blobs. I'll need quite a lot of them. And now that I have all these blobs, I'm going to stick them one by one on the upper side of the little Seehund. And that way, when I spray this with gunship grey, the next step, I'll get a negative here and a model pattern. Hopefully. There, like so. Okay, now we're going to spray this with dark grey. Let's go. And now it's time to remove these poster butt blobs. They have a tendency to stick to the underlayer, and you can use a bigger blob to remove the residue. But let's get the main ones off first. There we go. Until you have something like this. Now the spotty camo on the original U5329 was very roughly applied by brush, but I decided to do this alternative camo pattern simply as an experiment. The pattern came out a little bit sharp. I think softer dots would have looked nicer. And of course we have the torpedoes. Next up is a layer of Alclad Aqua Gloss. Okay, next up is the oil wash. I mixed my own with oil paint and lighter fluid, and this may look black, but it's actually very dark grayish brown. So I'm going to apply that now. Just apply it all over the model. Like so. And then in a minute we'll wipe it off with a nice cotton bud. Going to use a pad for the larger areas first. Like so. And we'll switch to a cotton bud for the finer work. And for the real fine corners, I'm gonna use these pointy buds. Okay, so now this oil wash has to dry for a couple of days. I usually leave it for about 48 hours. So, see you in 2 days. And we're back. For the next stage I will add some smears of rust. I'll be using this sienna oil paint for that. So let's do it right now. Now I'm just going to add some light touches of sienna. To some crucial points here. Where I would expect some, rust to build up. And while it's still a bit wet, with a harder brush, I'm just going to feather it out a bit. And you get a bit of these soft, runny patches of rust and muck. Like so. Now don't use too much paint for this stage. Just a couple of tiny spots will do. And also make sure that the feathering brush, this actually just a big brush, not a actually feathering brush, but this will work. Make sure that one is nice and dry. Just a little blob. And then feather it out. Now this beastie looks already pretty worn and rusty now, so I'm just gonna stop at this stage. I think this will suffice. And this being oil paint, to get these effects, it will need a longer drying time, like about 48 hours. See you in 2 days. So now the painting and weathering is done. It's all dry now, so I'm going to give it a final shot with some aqua gloss. So that's it. Let this dry and then mount the torpedoes and it's finished.